this thing out of the bushes.
What are we doing?
Let's go do this. We're gonna go meet Jason from Not Just Bikes. For those of you who don't know, he's got a popular YouTube channel, and it's pretty exciting to meet with him. We're meeting all these like special people of the Netherlands. I feel special that special people, want to be special with us. That sounds weird. All right.
I couldn't even hold the camera.
This is a very special experience. I appreciate you taking your time out at night with us. And
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
But we're going to ride south and go through the residential areas and some of the areas that tourists wouldn't get to, and it'll be a little quieter then. But
the nighttime ride around Amsterdam and say, why not try it out?
so right now we're in the Frans Halsweg, and this is interesting because they removed most of the surface parking here.
Yeah.
So this used to be lined with cars on either side of the road, like you'd see on almost any other street, to be honest. And
now
now
loads
it's
of
been
bikes.
replaced with bicycle parking, with planters, with trees. So you can see over here to our left, we've got planters that they're going to be growing some trees in there. Like this is still relatively new, so not a lot has grown in yet. But yeah, it's really nice. And here is the Frans Halstraat, and you can see it's beautiful. It's like a jungle as you go down here with trees all over the place, and it's a lot nicer than when it was full of cars.
This is a trend we're seeing more and more, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was a little bit of a trial for the city to see how this went. They built an underground parking garage for the cars over there. It's actually underneath the canal. But in general, it's been quite the success. And there's significantly fewer cars coming through here too. Although here at night, it's a little bit busy. But the only people who will be driving through here will be local traffic, because there's no through traffic at all through this neighborhood.
How do they limit that? I saw some ways they limit that in Delft, where we were earlier today.
In here, it's relatively simple. It's mostly one-way streets that just make it a maze so that it's impossible to go through. Over here on Ferdinand Balstraat, that is blocked off on either side to cars. Blocked off up here, rather. So you can't come through. So you can come through only from the south side, and then you can go to these neighborhoods, and then you have to exit again from that side. So where we were just back here a little while ago is you cannot go through with a car. You can only go through with walking, cycling, and public transit.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I'm sure it definitely creates a different vibe. I mean, here at night, there's definitely a little bit of activity, but as you said, during the day, and I'm sure early in the morning, it's just
It's absolutely silent.
Yeah.
So we'll take a little ride down here, down the Frans Hals,
Cool.
and we'll see some of this, and then we'll talk to it when we get there. Let's
All right,
keep going.
let's do it. And you see, it's actually not that complicated. It's just, remove the cars and
then
give the space back to the people, and it's great.
It's true. I mean, people will come out. I think that's one of the things I try to talk about on my channel too. Like when Amsterdam became bicycle friendly after the 1970s, they didn't do it to become bicycle friendly. They actually did it to make the streets safer.
Right.
Like bicycles was not a consideration. And even in the 80s, people were still fighting just to get like a painted line on the road. What really happened was they made the streets safer, and then in doing so, people started cycling, and then as people started cycling, they're like, we should build some cycling infrastructure.
Right.
So here, and the reason I brought you out here, this is actually a relatively busy road, Hobenmakade, and this is what's called the Hoofdnet Auto. So this is where cars are supposed to be. This was a painted bicycle gutter here up until like last year, built in the 90s. So you see a lot of this in Amsterdam where there's still some bad infrastructure around because it hasn't been this great for that long. And infrastructure sticks around for, 30 years, right? So this was just a painted line on the road, on a busy road for cars, until literally last year. And now we've got your fairly standard fietspad here.
Like, I guess if people can be fooled by that. I mean, even talking about, the 70s and stuff like that, I'd definitely love to delve into that a bit more because, people always assume that, the bike infrastructure's always been here, the culture's always been here. And actually, you know, speaking about that, you know, how people were fighting back in the 70s and such, and
Yeah, that's something I've talked about before. There was a bit of an element of luck here. Like when you look at the decisions that were made here in the 1970s to make this place less car infested, let's say, it's not like it was unanimous or something, and or anything like that. I mean, a lot of these plans, like even the plan to run a highway right through the center of Amsterdam, it won in city council by like 1 or 2 votes.
I heard about that.
It was not
yeah.
like it was an overwhelming consensus. Like this was not something that everybody was on board with. So I think there was an element of luck here. There was the oil crisis in the 70s, and then at the same time there was a road safety campaign called Stop the Kindermoord that kind of happened around the same time. I would never come down here before. Now I come through here quite regularly because it connects to several destinations, but this is all new. These traffic lights up here are new. They've actually got bicycle priority. And what's interesting is that they have those push buttons, but you don't really ever need to use them. They're only there in case it doesn't detect your bike. There are loops in the ground that are calibrated to pick up a bicycle. Maybe if you're on a carbon fiber bicycle or something, it won't detect it, and so then you can press the button. But I've seen people complain, oh, you know, they make you press the button across the street. This is inhumane. And I'm like, you don't have to press the button. It's there only if it doesn't detect you for some reason, if there's some system fault. Like,
you ever seen someone lay their bike down on the ground in an automobile intersection? They're trying to get it to register the metal in your bike.
All right, we're going to turn right here. This is the intersection I showed in my traffic lights video, and the reason I made that video is because I would come from that direction quite often.
Sure.
And that light there turns green almost all the time when you're cycling. It's remarkable, actually. I don't know if we'll get to see it here. It depends on the traffic because it will detect if the cars can be stopped, and then if they can, it makes it green for the cyclists so they can go through. And it's remarkable how well this intersection works now because this is the latest and greatest, the smart traffic lights.
That kind of gets back to some of the stuff you've spoken about before too, about, you know, the prioritization of moving people, not moving vehicles, as a lot of laws are developed around that sort of thing in other places, not necessarily here, but they actually understand that detail, that let's focus on the most effective way to move people.
That was as many people as possible.
We saw this one intersection in Delft earlier, about 30,000 bicyclists will pass every day. And, you know, certainly nowhere near that many cars, but they have the same sort of prioritization for cars without the smart lighting system. I love that you're showing us some of this new infrastructure because I think that's the challenge a lot of people have, like wrapping their head around, like what's possible and can you actually implement this and how quickly can you actually put these sort of things in.
So I don't think people would appreciate this at all if they came down here. This was a painted line with 4 lanes of car traffic, incredibly busy, and it sucked. This stuff wasn't always like this, and it was not very long ago that in the 90s, it was still considered acceptable to paint a line along the side of the road and say, you know, cyclists go there in the painted bicycle gutter. There's infrastructure here all the time that's left over from those days. Something that I also talk about fairly often, because I really want people to understand this, that when they talk about, you know, the bicycle infrastructure would be expensive if we did it, you know, we can't afford to do it. I mean, bicycle infrastructure is the cheapest infrastructure you can build, really. But the way that they did it here was not that they just went and redesigned the whole city overnight. They put in good quality bicycle infrastructure design guidelines for the traffic engineers so that when a street was due to be resurfaced, and that happens about every 25 to 30 years, they would bring it up to the latest standard. And you see that here in Amsterdam. You'll see it as, maybe even as we ride, we'll see it a bit. You'll see that the infrastructure will change because it may have been built 20 years ago when the guidelines were different. But I think this is why it's so absolutely critically important that cities get the design guidelines correct now, because everything they're building now is going to be around for 30 years. So for instance, in the US, if you look at the design guidelines of Massachusetts, they're actually pretty decent. And you're starting to see lots of separated bicycle infrastructure being built there simply because when a traffic engineer comes and has a project to redesign the road based on a resurfacing project, they're just going to go and they're going to check, check this, check this, check this. We're supposed to do bicycles. Okay, this is the thing we put in for this size of street, and they just plop it in the design and that's it. These people don't have to be experts. They don't have to be cyclists. They just have to have good guidelines that they work from. And that's where all of this comes from. design guidelines are difficult to change because the whole point of them is that you've made them to be safe, you know, which in the case of 1960s traffic engineering means big, wide, straight roads. You've made these guidelines for good reasons, and now you're supposed to follow them in order to make the best streets possible. And so there's quite a lot of resistance to having them changed. But if those can be changed, that's where all of this gets easier. Because like if you look over here, this is a pretty standard design here, right? We've got a 2 meter wide feets pad just behind us. Then you've got the way that the turn lanes here happen for cyclists turning left versus those going straight. It's got the curb that's slightly different than the sidewalk. It's got the red asphalt. Like this is the latest design guides right here on this street.
And it's tough to really fully explain the experience, but you just feel safe. You feel protected. You feel like somebody gives a crap about you.
It's absolutely
that
true.
You're not,
And I'll tell you, when that traffic light over there turns green for me, and I know it changed for me, that is such an unbelievable feeling. And that's why I made that traffic lights video, because I'm like, this is incredible.
Right.
Like that traffic light literally turned green just for me, because I was here on a bicycle.
And just before, if you don't mind sharing, so you have 2 kids, right? And they're
11 and 8.
11 and 8.
Yeah.
And they at times ride on...
They ride on this every single day.
Every day?
Every day, every school day, they will ride on these streets.
So a lot of people would say, hey, Amsterdam's a big city. Like, how do you let your kids ride on this? But the reality is
it's perfectly safe. Yeah. Our 11-year-old, I mean, he does this all on his own. Like, he goes to school on his own, he'll come home on his own, he'll go to his friend's house. Actually, a friend of his just lives around the corner from here, so he'll cycle through this very intersection. And it's perfectly safe for him.
That's great.
And actually, in the morning here, this is incredibly busy. There's a hell of a lot of bicycles coming through here.
Sure.
And so they have to learn how to deal with that. But that's simply going to make them safer road users too, because they're going to be trained from an early age to deal with other people being around. So we're going to ride on a little bit farther. I think we should swing by Zuidas, the financial district, because that's another place that a lot of people don't see.
Oh, there's so much.
Let's
keep on rolling because this can go never ending.
So this is fascinating to me too, because look at how freaking wide this street is.
Right.
And this is again like old street that just needs an upgrade and just hasn't had it yet. It's got speed bumps, but that's all we've got.
So for those that don't understand what you were just talking about a street being wide, and how a wide street is largely unsafe in a lot of ways.
Right. If you look back at photos of roads in the 1950s and into the 1960s, they had very narrow lanes. And what would happen is that cars would bump into each other. You move slightly in your lane and you take the side mirrors off of the car next to you.
Right.
And then what was thought is that, okay, well, we need to make this safer, because this is generally a good idea that you say we should allow people to make mistakes and not make those mistakes be fatal, right? That's a good logic, and that happens here too. And that was the same logic in the 1960s, but unfortunately, it was only looked at in terms of cars, and the end result of it was that people feel more comfortable going quickly when the roads are wide. And what you have then is you have a situation where people will drive faster naturally on wide roads.
Yeah.
Which is a huge problem in the United States, because a lot of roads are insanely wide, way wider than they need to be. This road here actually is, again, another old road. And if you look at the infrastructure on it, it's not very good. It has here like a painted bike lane right next to parked cars, right in the dooring zone. It's a 50-kilometer-per-hour speed limit, which is just too fast. But this is exactly my point. This was considered acceptable in the 1990s. Like, this is not good infrastructure.
Sure.
Now, I imagine that this will come up for a redesign at some point in time, and it will look totally different. But now, this is not a very safe road at all. There are lots of alternatives to this. Like, hardly anybody is going to be cycling on this road, because you could be up there where there was the protected bicycle path. You could be where we're going to go down here, which is a path through a park.
And it's amazing how people in North America would be like grateful for some of this
of course
type
they'd be
of infrastructure.
As I think they probably were here in the 90s, right? They would be very grateful for this, because they actually acknowledged that there would be bicycles here, right?
Sure.
All right, we can cross here.
All right.
This intersection has gone through a few changes since I've lived here. It is not particularly, by Dutch standards, this is considered not particularly safe because it is a 50-kilometer-per-hour road.
Oh,
Watch
I'm
out.
in the bike lane here.
Yeah. So now we've entered here into Beatrix Park that has this bike path. It's about 4 meters wide, two-way. This gets very, very busy during the day, and it's a major thoroughfare. This is like a bicycle highway, effectively. One of the things I've talked about in my videos before is that they have this concept of separating car traffic from bike traffic, but what they also do is they separate the routes taken by cars and the routes taken by bicycles completely. So you can't get hit by a car if there's no cars. So I'll come through here quite regularly to go to places, say if I'm going to Rivierenburg or something like that. It actually has like different routes that you can take. You can go this way, or where we just turned, and that path there leads to it as well. You'll see we'll get up to another junction up here. You don't need traffic lights when you're using bicycles, so there are no traffic lights here, which also makes travel extremely quick because the bicycle routes are designed so that you don't need to stop. So here, another junction, obviously no traffic lights required because traffic lights are for cars. You see these islands, right? So you can cross one lane of traffic, and all you need to worry about is this one car's coming from this direction. You'll see there's a speed bump here. So they're going to be slowed down before they get to this intersection. You only need to think of that one direction. Then you go here, and then you only need to think about the tram and bus lane. You've got another area to wait, and then you only need to wait again for one lane of car traffic. So let's take a left here.
Into this a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But you're not a civil engineer or urban planner.
No.
Or...
I have a degree in electrical engineering, actually.
Okay, but you're a fast learner. So I'm fueled a little bit differently. So in part, I'm fueled by my experience in Iraq driving fuel trucks and getting shot at. I think we should try to not be dependent on oil so much, and maybe bikes is a way that we can do that. So.
Well, the thing that really opened my eyes is that I had a job that required me to do a lot of business travel, like an excessive amount of business travel. I had gold status on 3 separate airlines at the same time.
Wow.
Which is like, that's not a normal amount of business travel. So in doing these trips, I would go to all of these cities, and I'd see the difference in the way that they were designed. And I never thought about it that much, like I think most people do. They think, oh yeah, that's the culture in Asia and that's how they design their cities. That's the culture in Europe, that's the way they design their cities. But when I started digging into it some more, I realized like these are all conscious decisions that these cities make in order to design things this way. And when I started learning some history of urban planning in North America, it was really sad because I realized just how many great places we bulldozed to put highways and parking lots. And it's really disturbing.
We did all these things and we thought were progress, but now we got to figure out how to reverse it a little bit.
Yeah, when you read the history of it, like 1960s, people looked at the automobile and thought, geez, nobody's going to walk anymore, so let's just build everything for cars. And this is why you see neighborhoods in the US and Canada built in the 60s that have no sidewalks, because they literally thought, you'd be crazy to walk when you can drive. That was the thought at the time, which you can't necessarily blame them at the time. They thought that they were bringing the future, right? Even here in the Netherlands, you read stuff from the 60s and they talk about cycling as this thing they have to get rid of. Like they literally talk about it that way, as in it's like a stain on the country that there's all these people on bicycles. And we need to improve our situation here after World War II, catch up to the rest of the world, put these people in cars. Like that was the messaging that you saw from people.
That's the economic future of the city, right? And without that, we're behind.
So my channel was originally quite popular in the early days because of Dutch people seeing it and having no idea that this was special. Like they saw all this stuff and they're like, what, that isn't normal to do that? What? So that was where the first success came from. The second level, the second big spikes that I got in the channel is when I started talking about Strong Towns, which appealed to the Americans, which is a nonprofit organization in the US started by a traffic engineer who I find it fascinating because he came to many of the same conclusions I did, but from a totally different point of view.
Right.
He did it by looking at the financials of these roads and stroads that he was building,
Right.
and saying like, geez, who's paying for all this stuff? Like I know how much this stuff costs because I'm building it, especially when American drivers tell, that the cyclists should start paying their way or something like that. Like it's absurd. Because there is no country in the world where the drivers pay for their infrastructure. The closest is probably Denmark because of their, whatever it is, 180% tax on cars.
Right.
But when you analyze any of the finances of car infrastructure in the United States, in any place in the country, people who don't drive are overwhelmingly subsidizing people who do. And that's just the way it is. But what's interesting about strong towns is...
I got to call this out because, you really got to dive into this guy's channel on some of these topics. It's kind of crazy. I don't think you called it this, but if you think about it, like a lot of the economics behind roadway development, it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's
Well,
kind of mind-blowing. Like
so
when
Strong
you
Towns
look
has
at
this
that.
concept of the growth Ponzi scheme, and I made a video about it. That was one of the big successful videos of that last year. But even today, people believe that suburban development brings prosperity. Like this is the American dream, right? The idea that you build these new suburbs and that makes our country prosperous. And it's simply just not the case.
Yeah.
It's really, really not. In fact, what Strong Towns has shown is that it's exactly the opposite. It's that these places are making Americans poorer.
I respect the truth. I respect like getting down to the reality of it. And I think that we can often just brush it aside and get just caught up in social media and whatever else and not think about, this existing world around us and how it's making us unhealthy and unhappy, really.
When I started talking about this stuff, it's talking about the cycling stuff the way it is here. It's not just that it's better for the environment or cheaper or whatever, it's a better quality of life too. It's like legitimately a better quality of life. So I think this really is a win-win for everybody if we could just get through preconceptions about these things. Like we live a better quality of life here than I ever did in any other city I've lived in.
Yeah. Dutch people are largely some of the happiest people in the world, right?
And they say the happiest kids in the world,
And also the happiest drivers in the world. There's
I'm
some
literally
arguments around
working
that,
on a video on that as we speak. Well, my editor is literally right
Yeah.
now. Driving here is awesome, but it really boils down to these cities here have viable alternatives to driving. That means the only people who are driving are those people who want to drive or those people who need to drive.
Right.
And that makes a massive difference, not only in lower traffic congestion. When you think about road rage and you think about people just being pissed off in their cars, you're basically designed a city where everybody has to drive all the time to do everything. Like they can't even feed themselves without getting in a car, right? And so everybody has to use a car for literally everything. And driving in traffic sucks. Like even if you like cars, driving along some road and hitting a ton of red lights, it's a crappy experience, right? And what you end up doing is you end up with a city full of people who are forced to do something miserable every single day all the time and have no choice. And that makes a bunch of angry, miserable people. It's funny, if you look at any condo development and you look at the renderings that they make, there'll be all these happy people walking and cycling.
Right.
And then when it actually gets built, there's hardly anybody walking and cycling because it's along the side of a busy road and there's no bike lane and everything else. But this is, again, where when you look at the history of Amsterdam, they weren't building a cycling city.
Right.
They were just making the streets safer. And once the streets were safer, people came out walking, people came out
If you
cycling.
build it, they will come.
To a certain extent, yes, but it has to be safe.
If you build it safe, they will come.
Safely, they will come.
Yeah,
So like when we were out here on the road to get here, there's no bike lane. It's just a safe street. And people will absolutely cycle on those kind of streets if it's safe.
So here we are 50 years later
Yeah.
from the 70s and such when this was,
Yeah.
really being developed in a lot of ways. And some other cities in North America have begun this process some
Right.
years ago.
But the thing is, if you look at the pictures of Amsterdam from the 1970s, the roads were jam-packed with cars.
Sure.
Like absolutely packed with cars. So the direct route was there, but then everybody took it, and then there was a ton of traffic. So when they cut those paths and made it only for walking, cycling, and sometimes public transit, yeah, it was less convenient, but then a whole bunch of people suddenly found their trip was more convenient by walking, cycling, or taking public transit,
Right.
which reduced the number of cars on the road, which makes it easier. So in the 1970s, you might have been able to just drive there. Where we started, out on Ferdinand Bolstraat, it used to be just straight through for cars. And it was a car sewer. It was full of traffic all the time. Now the cars have to go around, but you're going to get there faster by going around today than you would have straight through in the 1970s. And that's, again, why driving here is awesome, because I do have to drive here. If I get a car share car and I drive, it's great because there's not that much traffic outside of rush hour especially.
Right.
And the roads are in great shape because the amount of asphalt per person is much smaller and the taxes are more reasonable. So you're driving on great infrastructure, there's less traffic, and it's super comfortable and convenient to drive. Now sometimes I have to drive. Yeah, that's fine, you're going to have to drive sometimes, but I don't drive that often.
People don't want to be in traffic. People don't want that necessarily. That's not necessarily their first choice, as you said.
No.
That I generally just pick the best option to get where I'm going, and I personally would like it if cities provided more options. I think that that's just better for everybody overall, including myself.
Yes.
All right, speaking to the choir here.
Yeah, I know, right? So there's a couple of things that are interesting here. This here, Strawinskylaan parking garage. This is a very new bicycle parking garage put in, I think, 2018. It was brand new when we moved here.
And is this is free for 24 hours?
Free for the first 24 hours, yeah. So this is actually the third underground bicycle parking garage at this train station. There's two over here, but they were not enough, so they built this one. This is a stunningly beautiful parking garage. And then it's all underneath here. Everything you see here is new. Because this is the financial district for Amsterdam.
Right.
This is called Zuidas. This is also fascinating to me. I love this because if I think about the financial district in Toronto, or I think about it in New York, or any other North American city, it is nothing like this.
Oh, no.
Like the financial district is full of cars. You know, everybody's driving their luxury cars in, stuck in traffic and everything else in here. But you see people here coming into their finance jobs and they're riding a bicycle. Now they might be riding a nice e-bike. If you were to come to a place with a equivalent financial district in the 1970s, I don't think you would have seen that. The people would not have been riding bicycles.
Right, right.
So there is also an element here of a lot of people ride bicycles here because it's quick and efficient. Like, why would you not? Like, you could drive your car here, and people do. There's an underground car parking garage. I think it's just over here. But if you do, you're going to take longer. You're going to sit in traffic.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just ride your bike?
But it's really challenging, to be in other places where it's the other way around, where it's, why are you riding your bike? Did you get a DWI?
Yeah.
Do you not have enough money to buy a car?
I mentioned this
It's generally those two things, right? Like,
yeah,
I mean,
I mentioned this in my I Am Not a Cyclist video where my wife was working in finance in Toronto, and she worked with a lot of suburbanites who would drive in. And when they found out she rode a bike, they'd be like, why?
Right.
Like, what is wrong with you? Are you some kind of tree hugger or something?
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that?
Aren't you concerned about how people are going to look at you?
Yeah. More people are going to ride bikes, and as more people ride bikes, it becomes normalized. And as I said in my I Am Not a Cyclist video, it's really hard to be anti-cyclist when, half your coworkers and your sister and two of your best friends all ride a bike.
Good luck
right?
with
Like,
that one. Right?
Yeah, right? Suddenly
Good
you're
luck
not
with
so
that.
anti-cyclist when half the people you know ride bicycles, right? Because then it's not about being a cyclist. It's just another way to get around. Let's go through in here, because I want to show you the financial district, because what's interesting about the Amsterdam Financial District is that it's entirely pedestrianized.
Wow.
Which is remarkable. So there's a station here. Let's take a, we'll ride. So this is a major train station, and they're going to expand it to many more tracks.
Wow.
But you see here, this is all pedestrianized. This is the financial district, right? Can you imagine if the New York or Toronto Financial District looked like this?
Right.
Like they've got shops here, they've got patios. People are out having their drinks on Friday night, and these are their office buildings right here. What I like about Amsterdam Zuid is that this shows you how you can do this in a modern way. Like, this is not your 17th century canal ring.
Right.
This is all shiny condo buildings and office towers and everything else. And this shows you how you can build this around a major train station. So you can see how lots of the people who work here come here by train. And in the Netherlands, it's almost 50% of people who take the train arrive by bicycle. We can stop just up here, take a little look around, but again, financial district. Most people, when they think of Amsterdam, don't think of this. Condo towers and office towers. This is all new. And this is how you can build good urbanism that's new. Again, this is all pedestrianized, right? We just exited that train station. On the north side and the south side, there isn't some road that's full of taxi drop-offs and full of people driving through. So here we are at the first time we encounter cars.
So speaking about making that way on purpose, a lot of cobblestones, a lot of noisy roads, if you will, where a lot of people would probably think like, hey, this is not a modern road, this is an old cobblestone road, but this is by design and it's intentional.
This is entirely by design. They put it raised up. You'll notice the crossing here. Pedestrians don't go down to the road level, cars go up to the pedestrian level, so it's like a built-in speed bump. Then they've got the cobbles, which will make more road noise, which makes people subconsciously slow down. It's a much safer way to go. So you see here, we're totally separated from the traffic. So that is a relatively busy car road by Amsterdam standards. That's where a lot of the cars are meant to be. But we're totally separated from it. And again, when the highway and the rail line come up here, we go under it. We stay at ground level and it's raised up. And they try not to do bridges for bicycles because bridges are more difficult because you have to cycle your way up and then you cycle down. They prefer tunnels because on a bicycle in a tunnel, you get speed going down, which helps you on the way up, which makes it easier to cycle. But even better than a tunnel is to keep the cyclists at ground level and then make the cars go up. I think we're about to finish up here, but here is a situation where you've got this major route for bicycles and then a very major route for cars. And here, they do not have an underpass or something like this. And this is funny because I very often come here, I have to cross through here. And it drives me crazy because this will be the only traffic light I encounter. So. Wow,
this has been amazing. I really enjoyed nerding out with you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We kind of went into some deeper stuff than we generally do on our channel. And I know you get into a lot of this stuff. And I really have enjoyed and admired your work. It's great to meet you in person.
And nice to meet you too.
I'm sure other people are appreciating seeing your face still. and this has been great. And I hope that we get a chance to do it again. I'm sure others would like to see it again. Again, check out Not Just Bikes YouTube channel. I'm sure you've probably seen it already if you're into this sort of stuff. But if you're not, I mean, you watch a little and it's just, it's over.
Sucks you in. Yeah, people have said like they see things in a totally different way.
Like you can't unsee it, you know, sort of thing?
My young audience calls it getting orange pilled. So once you've been orange pilled, you can't go back.
But really a pleasure. Thanks for coming out at night with us.
I'm up late all the time.
You're a night owl, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I'm not always a night owl, but definitely for this occasion, it's a pleasure to be out. This is awesome. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys soon.